Hey, how's it going, everybody? If you're new here, welcome in. And if you've been here before, welcome back. I'm Rollshambo, the connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny. And if you get stoked on budget knives, make sure to smash that like button on the way in. Today, we've got a new offering from Fintiso. Now, this is not the first time that I've had Fintiso on my table. In fact, we've previously checked out the Fintiso Cobra series, and then, of course, we've also checked out the Rook, which was the very last one that we looked at. So this has given me an opportunity to get a feel for Fintiso and what we can expect from them so far. And being a newer brand to the knife community, I'm happy to say that I've been seeing some good improvements, especially in their newer models. So let's go ahead and talk about what this is, what it costs, and who exactly is this for? So to start us off, this is the Fintiso Falcon, and it is a new release from them, and it is going to fall squarely in the budget realm. And what I mean when I say that is that it costs $48 on Amazon at the moment. Now, you can buy it directly from them on their website for about 53 bucks, but you might as well get some expedited shipping and save yourself a few dollars in the meantime. I will make sure to list this in the description down below with a link directly to Amazon. So what does your 47, 48 hard-earned dollars get you? Well, honestly, I'm not entirely sure because you can never quite trust Amazon listings. So we're going to go ahead and measure it out. Overall length on this guy is going to be coming in just shy of 8 inches. We'll call it 7.75, so 7 3/4 with a 3.5 inch blade. And about 2.8 inches of that is going to be your cutting edge. For deployment options, we are rocking with a flipper tab and then, of course, a double-sided thumb stud, which is going to be good for your thumb flicks. It's going to be good for your reverse flicks. All is good. We've got a clip that would be deep carry if it was positioned a bit higher, but it's not, which means that it's going to have about that much sticking out of your pocket. We've got an aluminum backspacer here. You can see that it's got these steel liners, so of course it is in fact a liner lock. That liner lock is going to be locking up, somewhere in the realm of, I would say that's a good 30%. How's lockup? Lockup is good. There's no wiggle or jiggle there. Nothing bad at all. Blade centering is also good, dead on center, perfect. So the quality of life type things are definitely good. I would say that the detent is probably tuned more towards the flipper tab than towards the thumb studs, but both are definitely adequate for your flicking and flipping action. Absolutely no issue there. The blade is made out of 14C28N, and Fintiso is claiming 60 to 62 Rockwell on that 14C, which I have no way of verifying, but if it is in fact hitting those Rockwell hardness numbers, that means that you should in fact be getting a really decent amount of edge retention, corrosion resistance, and toughness out of this blade. I would call this blade shape a harpoon drop point. And it's one of my favorite blade shapes out there. Love the harpoon drop point. You know, the Chris Reeve Umnumzon, for example, is a harpoon drop point, but this one doesn't cost $500. This costs 10 times less. On the handle scales, we've got this milled out G10, and it feels pretty comfy in the hand. There's no hot spots, but I do in fact feel this clip right here, right on my index finger. So yeah, right about there on the index side of my palm, I do feel that clip. It's not super uncomfortable, but it's also not as comfortable as it could be. Reverse grip also works well. You know, in case you find yourself at the 7-Eleven trying to protect your Slurpee, that'll be a-okay. We've got a very generous finger choil right here. And I'm going to call this a finger choil because there's no way in the world that that could be considered a sharpening choil. And we've got plenty of distance between that edge termination and the plunge grind, which means that smiles are not going to be an issue on this blade whatsoever. For the hardware, it's a single-sided captive pivot that is T8, and then of course we do have T6 body screws and recessed T6 pocket clip screws. The pocket clip itself, unfortunately, is not reversible. I do think that that's an oversight, but that's neither here nor there. For most people who are right-handed, that's not going to be an issue. For the 10% of you who are left-handed, I'm sorry. Yet another company has not given us a left-handed option, which is a bit of a bummer, especially considering that this is in fact a really cool blade. Now, I do want to go ahead and address something. When I reviewed the Fintiso Rook originally, I hadn't taken it apart, and I was actually very impressed with it. And then I started to get a few comments from people who were saying that they could not get this taken apart. And I actually tried myself, and I'm not sure if it's because that maybe they use Loctite or something, or some kind of thread locker to secure that pivot, but I wasn't actually able to get my pivot to remove with the regular T8. In fact, I stripped that pivot. And that was pretty disappointing, especially finding out after the review. Sometimes I don't get around to taking these knives apart beforehand. So this time I wanted to make sure not to miss anything. And so I, of course, went ahead and took this apart. I used my handy dandy Pry 2, which is one of my favorite little multi-tools. So I went ahead and took this apart, did not have any issue. I'm not sure if they used thread locker or red Loctite on the Rook, but on the Falcon series, absolutely not an issue. Pretty much your standard liner lock to take apart and put back together. No evidence of any erroneous thread locker being used. Now, as far as its cutting ability, how good did they do on the factory edge? Let's go ahead and take out a piece of cardboard. I haven't cut anything with this yet, so we're going to find out together just how good this edge geometry is and how good the factory edge is. Let's go ahead and try it out against some scrap cardboard. All right. And guys, I know there are plenty of knives out there that can cut cardboard. What we're looking at here is how easily it slices through, how clean is the cut. I haven't cut anything with this knife, which means that it is a factory fresh edge. Yeah, that is definitely adequate. And believe it or not, a lot of knives come from the factory with edges that have belt burn or with edges that are just bad, and you have to kind of strop them or sharpen them to get them to perform well. In this case, it's performing really well. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this factory edge. It's decently slicey. Absolutely no issue there whatsoever. You could cut your cardboard into tiny pieces. Now, something that I thought was rather interesting on here, and at first I thought it was maybe a bit of a manufacturing mistake. You'll notice that the coating on the back of the blade ends right here, and it looks like they forgot to put in the notch. And then they were like, oh, shoot, yeah, we've got to make it a harpoon. And then they did that after the fact. And then I started thinking about it, and I went online and I checked, and sure enough, that was intentional. So Fintiso was thinking about those who might actually be using this with a ferro rod. A ferro rod is a flint striker, and you need a sharp 90-degree angle on your knife to use this adequately, and that's what this provides. That's why that's unfinished, and that's why we have a harsh edge right there on the spine of the blade. So that's going to allow you to use this with something like a ferro rod and strike it against that and get your fire started, no problem. But if you're looking at this wondering why that piece of the spine specifically is unfinished, yeah, that's why. And while we're here at this area, let's go ahead and talk about the jimping. It does, in fact, have jimping, which is something that I like to see. Something that I'm not a huge fan of on here, though, is how weak the jimping itself is. The jimping could be deeper. It's kind of shallow, and also they should have extended it all the way to here. That would have given us plenty of purchase and allowed us to use it like it was intended. But in this case, the jimping just kind of looks like it's just for show. Now, is that a huge deal on this knife? I don't really think so. I mean, keep in mind, guys, we're talking about a $48 knife, a sub $50 knife. What I care about the most on a sub $50 knife is things like, is the action good? Is it a good looking knife? Because believe it or not, if you don't like the way it looks, you're not going to put it in your pocket. And if you don't put it in your pocket, you're not going to use it. And if you don't use it, then why are you buying a $50 knife, right? It looks good. It's made with a good blade steel material, especially if they are actually hitting that 60 to 62 Rockwell range like they're claiming. That's fantastic. That's going to be very nice. I care about its cutting ability, and going through that cardboard, it actually had no issue whatsoever, which tells me that it's going to be a good cutter. Ergos are all right, but they're not the best, but they're also not the worst. I don't think that most people will have an issue with this. Versatility is pretty good as well. Now, you might be wondering, that's great and all, how heavy is this knife? If I'm taking it backpacking, I probably want to know if it's going to fit with my backpacking carry. Let's go ahead and put it on the scale and we'll figure out how much it weighs. Here we go. And it's going to be coming in right there at about 4.2, almost 4.3 ounces. So it's not super lightweight, but it's also not what I would consider to be exceptionally heavy either. So this is going to be a good option for a couple different kinds of people. I think that this is going to be good for the person that wants a nice, reliable knife that they can maintenance and use while they're out backpacking, while they're out camping, especially if you're the type that uses a pocket knife with something like a flint striker or a ferro rod to get your fires going. That's a nice little addition as well. If you're someone that goes hiking frequently and you want a blade steel that's not going to rust if you get caught out there in the rain, that's nice, especially if you're using this to cut through food. 14C28N is one of those blade steels that we frequently find on chef's knives because when you cut through food, a lot of foods have different acids in them. They can eventually cause the blade steel to oxidize. And if that wasn't good enough, it also has this coating, which, believe it or not, is actually pretty scratch resistant. 14C, not known to be very scratch resistant, but this coating, which I'm not sure what it is, yeah, it's not it's not scratching. It's very scratch resistant. I would guess that that is a titanium nitride coating. I'm not sure. They don't list it, and I'm not sure, but I do know that it is scratch resistant, more scratch resistant than your everyday run-of-the-mill PVD. The difficult thing about these knives in this $50 price point is that the competition is stiffer than it's ever been before. So there is a lot of other knives that are really good at this price point. But I am curious to see what your thoughts are. What do you think of the Fintiso Falcon series? Is this one that you would consider putting in your pocket, or is it going to be a pass for you? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you watched this far and you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And by the way, if you want to check out some more videos on some awesomely priced budget knives, I've got a couple more coming up for you right about now.